Welcome, seekers of stories and keepers of memory, to Faces of History, the podcast where we brush centuries of dust from the forgotten faces that shape the world we know, often in ways so quiet we barely realize their hands are still guiding ours. I am your host, the Duke of New York, your companion tonight as we travel back not to a battlefield or a palace, but to a small attic laboratory where sunlight and silver salts first conspire to trap time itself. Tonight, we meet a man whose name rarely crosses our lips, though every photograph we hold, every selfie, every image that freezes a fleeting second owes its first breath to him. He was an inventor, a dreamer of light, a restless Frenchman who looked out of his window and wondered, what if this view could stay forever? Tonight, we remember Joseph Nicéphore Niépce, the man who captured the first photograph. Joseph Nicéphore Niépce was born on March 7, 1765, in the quiet town of Chalon-sur-Saône, nestled in the rolling vineyards and gentle hills of Burgundy, a region famous for its wine, its rich history, and the slow, patient craft of the vintners who coax sweetness from the soil. The world Niépce entered was a France on the brink of transformation. He was born into a middle-class family. His father was an official in the local administration, a man who understood the law and the workings of government, while his mother's influence in the household imbued young Joseph with a quiet steadiness. From the earliest days, Niépce's mind seemed to wander beyond the immediate world of Burgundy's fields and town markets. He was a boy of delicate health and introspective temperament, not a rambunctious child, but one who found solace in study, in books, and in the patient observation of nature's rhythms. His childhood was marked by a love of mechanics and experiments. He was fascinated by how things worked, the gears of clocks, the flow of water, the movement of light. With a curious eye, he would dismantle toys and small machines, eager to understand the secrets hidden beneath their smooth surfaces. Education was a treasured gift in the Niépce household. Joseph attended the Oratorian College in Angers, a rigorous institution where science, philosophy, and mathematics were held in high regard. Here, amid dusty tomes and candlelit classrooms, he nurtured a passion for invention and discovery. It was also at Angers that he met his brother Claude, just a few years his senior. The brothers would forge a bond, both personal and professional, that would last their entire lives. Claude, equally fascinated by the emerging technologies of the day, became Niépce's partner in experiments that blurred the line between art and science, but the turbulent times were never far. France, in the throes of the Revolution, was a land in upheaval. The old order was crumbling, and the air buzzed with the promise and peril of change. Joseph's youth was punctuated by the clash of ideals and violence of war. He joined the military as a young officer, serving in the French Revolutionary armies stationed in Italy and Sardinia, but the march of muskets and the clang of swords never quite matched the rhythm of his mind. He was a man of the Enlightenment, drawn to progress, reason, and invention rather than battle. Yet even in the army, his mechanical mind found expression. He designed devices and improved tools to assist the troops, small innovations born from the desire to make the world more efficient. After years in service, Niépce returned to Chalon-sur-Saône. The countryside was his refuge, the workshops of his family home, his sanctuary. It was here, surrounded by the quiet rolling hills and the golden light of Burgundy, that Niépce's restless mind began to focus on a singular question. How could the fleeting world before his eyes be captured, preserved, made permanent? The Niépce brothers embarked on a journey that would span decades, tinkering with chemistry, optics, and machinery. Their shared curiosity drove them into the heart of early industrial innovation. Among their early achievements was the pyreolophore, an engine powered by combusting a mixture of moss, coal dust, and resin. This engine was one of the first practical internal combustion engines ever built, demonstrated in 1807 by propelling a boat along the River Saône. It was a marvel, a glimpse of the future, years before the engines of cars and airplanes would roar across the world. Yet, like many pioneers, Niépce's genius was not fully recognized in his lifetime. The pyreolophore was too ahead of its time, too strange for the eyes of contemporaries accustomed to steam and horse. But Niépce's heart beat strongest for light, that intangible force that danced on surfaces, carved shadows, and painted the colors of the world. He began to imagine a machine that could capture light itself, to transform sunlight from a passing phenomenon into something tangible. What if, he asked himself, the sun's rays could be made to etch an image onto a surface? What if the world's fleeting moments could be fixed, held still like a pressed flower in a book? This question would lead Niépce down a path of experiments with chemicals and camera obscuras, devices centuries old, but still mysterious and magical in their ability to bend light and focus it into images. Niépce was not a man of grand speeches or public acclaim. He was patient, meticulous, and persistent. His workshops were cluttered with strange contraptions and chemical pots, with pewter plates and oils. He worked in silence, driven by a quiet passion that few could understand. The vineyards of Burgundy may have been steeped in tradition, but in that small attic, history itself was quietly bending to a new future. Niépce's vision was clear: to capture the ephemeral, to trap a moment before it vanished forever. For Niépce. In the quiet shadows of his cluttered attic workshop, Joseph Nicéphore Niépce pursued a dream that stretched beyond the known limits of his time, a dream to capture light itself, to freeze the fleeting dance of sunbeams and shadows onto a lasting surface. He was fascinated by the camera obscura, an ancient device that had mesmerized scholars and artists for centuries, a simple box or room with a tiny hole that projected an upside-down image of the outside world onto a surface inside, a magical window where light painted real scenes with silent strokes. Niépce asked himself, what if that image could be fixed? What if the light could be made permanent? The problem was monumental. Light is fleeting. It comes and goes, changes by the second. Capturing it required a medium that could hold on to its delicate imprint without fading away. Niépce experimented with a substance called bitumen of Judea, a naturally occurring asphalt-like material that hardened when exposed to light. He coated pewter plates with this resin, exposed them to the image projected by the camera obscura, and then washed away the unhardened parts with lavender oil and white petroleum. The result? An image etched in shadow and light, a ghostly impression of reality, faint, blurred, but unmistakably there. The process was slow. Exposures lasted hours, sometimes days. The sun itself became his collaborator and his captor, moving across the sky as Niépce's plates quietly recorded its passage. In 1826 or 1827, the breakthrough came. Niépce's camera was pointed out of an upstairs window at his family estate in Le Gras, Burgundy. After an exposure estimated at about 8 hours, a faint but unmistakable image emerged. Rooftops, chimneys, a distant barn, the very first surviving photograph. This image, known today as View from the Window at Le Gras, was not the crisp snapshot we know today. It was grainy, monochrome, and eerily still, a world captured not in a blink but in the slow, patient heartbeat of sunlight. Niépce called his invention heliography, sun writing. It was a name that captured the essence of his discovery, a process where light itself inscribed the world onto metal. Yet, for all its wonder, heliography was impractical for widespread use. The long exposure times made it impossible to capture moving subjects or anything beyond the most static scenes. The chemicals were difficult to prepare and handle, the images fragile and faint. Niépce realized he needed help, someone with chemical expertise, artistic vision, and the ability to bring his discoveries to the world. Enter Louis Daguerre, a showman and artist known for his stage sets and dioramas. In 1829, the two men formed a partnership. Daguerre brought energy and a desire to refine the process, while Niépce brought the scientific breakthrough. Together, they hoped to shorten exposure times, improve clarity, and unlock photography's vast potential. But their collaboration was brief. Niépce's health, already fragile, declined rapidly. He died in 1833, leaving Daguerre to carry the torch alone. Though Niépce did not live to see photography become the world-changing phenomenon it would be, his dream of capturing light had set the stage. He imagined a world where moments, memories, even truths could be recorded without words, without paint, a new language of light and shadow. Niépce's heliographs remain silent witnesses to a turning point in human history. They remind us that behind every great invention is a mind willing to dream beyond the boundaries of the possible. The partnership between Joseph Nicéphore Niépce and Louis Daguerre began in 1829, a union of two very different men bound by a shared vision to capture reality itself with light and chemistry. Yet their collaboration would be cut tragically short, leaving the future of photography in the hands of one. Louis Daguerre was a man of the theater, a showman who understood the power of spectacle and the allure of images. He had spent years crafting elaborate dioramas and panoramic displays using light and perspective to enchant audiences in Parisian theaters. When he first saw Niépce's heliographs, he recognized the potential immediately. Here was a way not just to imitate art, but to replace it, a means to capture the world exactly as it was, no brushstroke needed. Niépce and Daguerre worked together tirelessly to refine the process. They experimented with new chemicals, new metals, and faster exposure techniques, but progress was slow and often frustrating. Niépce, in his late 60s and weakened by years of toil and illness, could not keep pace with Daguerre's relentless energy. In 1833, just 4 years into their partnership, Niépce died of a stroke. His death left Daguerre with both the promise and the burden of their joint invention. Daguerre was determined to perfect the art of light writing. He took Niépce's groundwork and pushed forward, developing what would become the daguerreotype, a process that could capture a clear image on a silver-coated copper plate, yes, with exposure times reduced to mere minutes. The daguerreotype was revolutionary. Unlike Niépce's heliographs, which took hours or days, Daguerre's method produced detailed, sharp images in a fraction of that time. Portraits became possible. Streets, buildings, and scenes of everyday life could be captured quickly and with astonishing clarity. In 1839, Daguerre announced his invention to the world. The French government, eager to showcase French genius, purchased the rights and declared the process free to the world, a gift to humanity. Yet, despite Daguerre's fame, Niépce's name faded into the background. The partnership, though acknowledged in official reports, was overshadowed by Daguerre's charisma and promotion. Niépce never lived to see this moment, the dawn of photography as a public phenomenon. He died quietly, his contributions overlooked by many, his name barely whispered outside specialist circles. His death was a quiet extinguishing of a brilliant mind, a man whose invention would ripple through history, but who himself remained a shadow in its wake. Yet the light he captured did not die with him. Instead, it burst into a new age where moments could be held forever, memories preserved beyond words. Niépce's legacy is a reminder that history often remembers the man who finishes the race, but rarely the one who starts it. His heliographs are the fossils of a revolution in sight and memory, a testament to the stubborn persistence of a curious mind. In the fading light of Niépce's life, he passed the torch to Daguerre, but it was Niépce who first dreamed of capturing the world with light. Joseph Nicéphore Niépce was a man who lived quietly, far from the clamor of fame, far from the halls of power. He did not seek glory or riches. Instead, he chased something far more elusive, a way to hold the fleeting world still, to catch the ever-shifting dance of light and shadow and bind it to a surface eternal and unchanging. In a dusty attic in Burgundy, beneath slanted ceilings and creaking beams, Niépce dared to dream the impossible. While kings and generals fought for land and legacy, he worked with chemicals and metal plates, guided by a quiet obsession to trap a moment, just one, before it vanished forever. The first photograph, a view from the window at La Grasse, is more than a mere image. It is a miracle born of patience and persistence. 8 hours of sunlight painting the shapes of rooftops and chimneys onto a pewter plate, an image blurred by time and the limits of early technology, yet infinitely powerful in its message. That photograph speaks across centuries. It whispers of a man who saw beyond the brush and the quill, beyond memory's frailty. Niépce gave us a new language, one of light, shadow, and silver, a language that could tell stories without words. Niépce did not live to see photography change the world. He did not witness portraits become windows to souls or landscapes become poetry on paper. He never held in his hands the countless images that would someday fill albums, magazines, museums, and screens. And yet, without him, none of that would exist. His work laid the foundation for an art form, a science, a revolution, the birth of modern photography. It gave humanity a way to stop time, to carry moments across generations, to hold memories in the palm of a hand. In the quiet corners of history, many names are lost. Niépce's is one that deserves to be remembered not just as a footnote, but as a pioneer who changed how we see the world and how the world sees itself. Next time you look at a photograph, whether an ancient sepia print or a glowing digital screen, remember the man who made that image possible. Remember the patience it took to wait for light to write its story, the ingenuity to coax chemicals to capture truth, and the quiet courage to dream beyond the limits of his age. Thank you for stepping into that dusty attic with me tonight. Thank you for keeping company with a man whose vision stopped time itself. I am the Duke of New York, and this was Faces of History. Until next time, keep your eyes open to the light and listen for the stories that flicker in the shadows. They are still here. They are still waiting to be seen. Good night.